Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror.
Last week, tragedy struck in Utah when Charlie Kirk, a highly influential conservative voice, was brutally murdered on a university campus. The news sent shockwaves across the nation, sparking conversations about politics, safety, and the future of democracy. In the midst of this chaos, one voice stood out: Arnold Schwarzenegger. Known not just as a Hollywood legend, but also as a former governor, Arnold delivered a powerful response that has everyone talking. But what did he really say? And why does his message matter now more than ever? Stay tuned until the end, because this isn't just about one man. It's about the survival of democracy itself, the pain of a life lost. Schwarzenegger didn't just glance over the news, he spoke with visible heartbreak. He reminded the audience that beyond the political headlines was a family now shattered forever. Charlie Kirk wasn't only a figure on television or social media, he was a father who once tucked his children into bed, read them stories, and guided them through life. Now those children face a future where their father's voice exists only in memories, photos, and news clippings. Arnold drew attention to the irreplaceable role Kirk played at home. He explained that no matter how influential someone is in public life, the most important role they carry is within their family. The loss, he said, wasn't just America's. It was most painfully felt in his household.
And he was a great father, great husband, and I was thinking about his children.
Where his loved ones will forever notice the silence at the dinner table. This humanized perspective pushed the tragedy far beyond politics, forcing the audience to reflect on the very real pain that comes when violence robs a family of its foundation. A shocking reflection. What deeply troubled Schwarzenegger was the reason behind this tragedy. He stressed that Charlie Kirk was not targeted for anything criminal or immoral, he was targeted because he had a different point of view. In a country built on free expression, that reality shook him to his core. He said it was unthinkable that, in modern America, disagreement could lead to something so permanent and irreversible.
I was very, very upset that someone's life was taken because they have a different opinion.
Arnold described Kirk as a communicator who could reach across the aisle, engaging students whether they shared his beliefs or not. Even those who opposed him often respected his energy, his debating skills, and his ability to spark discussion. To silence such a voice, not through words, but through violence, Arnold warned, is a sign of a dangerous decline in how society handles conflict. He made it clear that once people begin punishing ideas with violence instead of debate, the entire foundation of free dialogue starts to collapse. It wasn't just about Kirk. It was about what kind of nation America risks becoming if such actions continue unchecked. Who's to blame? Schwarzenegger didn't hold back when it came to pointing fingers. He identified the sources of division with crystal clarity: social media companies, mainstream media outlets, and both major political parties.
But we have to acknowledge that the cause of all of this is the social media companies that are dividing us.
In his view, these powerful institutions are not simply reporting on disagreements. They are fueling them for profit and influence. Platforms thrive on outrage, amplifying the loudest and most extreme voices, because conflict generates clicks. News networks, instead of calming tensions, feed the flames by framing every issue as a battle between us and them. And it doesn't end there. Schwarzenegger argued that political parties, both Republican and Democrat, are equally guilty of treating citizens like pawns in a chess game.
The mainstream media companies, the political parties, the Democrats, that they're dividing us.
Instead of bringing people together, they push strategies designed to divide communities and secure votes. The former governor warned that when every corner of society, from your phone screen to your nightly news, is encouraging you to see the other side as the enemy, violence becomes not only possible, but predictable. His message was chilling. If those in power continue profiting from division, then citizens must be the ones to rise above it. The cliff of no return. Arnold then delivered one of the most haunting metaphors of his speech. He said, America is standing right at the edge of a cliff, one step away from falling into chaos.
And we have to be very careful that we don't get any closer to that cliff.
On the surface, society may look strong, but underneath, there's a widening crack caused by endless hostility. And once the nation tips over that edge, there's no climbing back. What lies at the bottom of the cliff, he warned, is not democracy, but a world where freedom no longer exists. He described the danger in vivid terms. If political violence becomes normalized, then elections, debates, and even basic conversations will lose their meaning. The heart of democracy, the ability to disagree without fear, would be gone. This wasn't just a political warning, it was a wake-up call. Schwarzenegger painted a future where division destroys trust, families stop talking to each other, and communities collapse under suspicion. By framing it this way, he made clear that the stakes aren't abstract. They're real, urgent, and deeply personal for every citizen, turning the tide. But Schwarzenegger didn't leave his audience in despair. He pivoted to hope, insisting that the future can still be rewritten if people take action now. He emphasized that solutions won't come from politicians making speeches or corporations issuing press releases. They will come from ordinary citizens refusing to play into division. Change, he said, begins when individuals decide to lead in their own communities, whether that means starting a conversation, building a bridge, or standing up for respect in the face of hostility. Arnold urged people to stop underestimating their influence. He acknowledged that many feel powerless in the face of such massive problems, but he reminded them that every great movement in history began with individuals who chose to act. This is about reclaiming power from those who profit from division and returning it to the people themselves. He made it clear that if Americans are serious about preserving democracy, they cannot wait for someone else to do the work. The turning point isn't years away. It has to start right now. The role of students, Schwarzenegger then turned directly to the students, and his words carried the weight of both a challenge and an opportunity. He reminded them that universities have always been breeding grounds for new ideas, fresh energy, and bold leadership.
You can show leadership and you can get together and be this example. Because remember, the people power is the ultimate power.
But today, campuses are too often seen as battlegrounds, where one side shouts over the other. Instead of learning to understand different perspectives, students retreat into silos, following only those who already agree with them. Arnold urged them to break that cycle. He painted a picture of what could happen if students from different political groups, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, or anyone in between, sat together and worked on real-world problems like climate, housing, or education costs. Imagine the message that would send, he said. Instead of headlines about protests and clashes, the nation would see young people uniting around solutions. The ripple effect could be enormous. Other campuses would notice, the media would spotlight their collaboration, and even politicians might feel pressure to follow the students' example. He told them bluntly, you don't have to wait until you're older to lead. The chance to change the narrative is right now. If students take the first step toward dialogue, they could redefine what it means to be politically active in America, not by fighting harder, but by working smarter, redefining leadership. Arnold then redefined what it means to be a leader in today's divided climate. Too often, he said, leadership is seen as something reserved for those in high office or those with massive followings. But true leadership doesn't require a title, a budget, or even an audience. It requires courage. Courage to step up when others stay silent. Courage to choose unity when it's easier to join the mob. Courage to show respect even to those who offer none in return. He reminded the audience that history is full of ordinary people who became extraordinary leaders by making choices that seemed small at the time, but changed everything. A teacher who opened dialogue in a classroom, a neighbor who helped unify a community, a student who refused to join in on hostility. All of these, he said, are examples of leadership in its purest form. Arnold urged every person listening not to underestimate their own influence. In a time when division is the default, even the simplest actions, like listening with empathy or inviting someone with different views into a conversation, can send shockwaves. That's how cultures change, he said, not through one massive event, but through countless acts of leadership repeated by everyday people. The real meaning of democracy. As the speech reached its most philosophical point, Schwarzenegger dug into the very foundation of the word democracy. He explained how its roots, demos, meaning people, and kratos, meaning power, serve as a reminder that government was never supposed to belong to a select few.
It's all about, if you analyze the word democrat, the Latin demo, people, krat, power, that's what it is. People power.
Democracy, he said, was designed to place ultimate power in the hands of the people, but he warned that too many have forgotten this truth, handing over influence to politicians, media empires, and tech platforms that thrive on control. He said democracy isn't a spectator sport. It doesn't survive when people sit back and expect someone else to protect it. It survives when citizens use their voices, engage in debate, and hold leaders accountable. And it survives when people refuse to see their neighbors as enemies simply because of different political views. Arnold stressed that democracy is fragile. It can disappear slowly, almost without notice, if citizens allow apathy and hostility to replace participation and respect. He cautioned that once the people stop exercising their power, the system begins to weaken, and rebuilding it becomes nearly impossible. His message was a call to action. If Americans want democracy to endure, they must treat it as something alive, something that requires care, attention, and above all, active participation. The final call. As Schwarzenegger wrapped up, his message wasn't just about politics, it was about survival. He made it clear that America is at a crossroads. On one side is unity, dialogue, and the preservation of democracy. On the other is division, hostility, and the slow destruction of freedom. The choice, he said, doesn't rest in the hands of politicians or media executives. It rests in the hands of everyday people, watching, listening, and deciding whether to act. This tragedy should not become just another headline that fades away. It should be the moment when citizens recognize their power and refuse to give it up. Each individual has the ability to lead, to speak up, and to bring people together in their communities. That is what Schwarzenegger called people power, and he insisted it's the only thing strong enough to push America back from the edge of the cliff. So now the question is yours. Do you believe Americans can rise above division? Or is the country too far gone? And more personally, what would you do in your own life to show unity instead of hostility? If you made it this far, you're clearly part of the conversation that matters. Don't let this message stop here. Share it, discuss it, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you never miss powerful stories like this. Because the fight for democracy isn't just happening in Washington. It's happening in every home, every campus, and every community. Together, we can make sure it survives.